number one. Elation screams across their faces. Their first win of the Spring Splits. Trick, and that's going to be lights out. 20 kills to 0.
OG go down once again in this match.
Everybody, and welcome to the home of the European LCS, coming to you live from Berlin, Germany. This afternoon, we're bringing you the final match of the cross-group phase before the teams fight to make their sprint towards playoffs. And as we saw just a few moments ago, Origin heading onto stage, the man of the hour setting himself up. Xpeke back in the lineup for a week now, and Origin, they have a showdown today up against Giants. Good afternoon, I'm James Stress O'Leary. Joining me at the analyst desk today is Mitch Krepel-Vorspals and long-standing coach of H2K, Neil Prolly. Hamad, welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on this special Sunday of LCS.
Thanks, Shocks.
Yes, thank you, Shocks.
I can't speak Belgian right now, unfortunately, so we'll try. I'll try with some Welsh later. Well, with one day left in Week 7 and playoffs on the horizon, let's take a quick look at where the teams stack up. Yesterday, H2K secured first place over in Group B because they own the differential tiebreaker here. The win-loss difference is better for H2K, so despite having the same amount of series wins, they sit above the Unicorns of Love.
And isn't that beautiful? Probably. First place. Yeah, baby.
Yes, and I'm glad today I had it explained to me why we were actually in first place is that game differential, because, you know, as a coach, I should know that. And I'm glad that I was corrected. So.
And this is also not information that is totally not available to all coaches in the rule book, completely explained, found before the season. Gladly, we could reconcile there and we could really explain it to you. So
that's why I'm here today, you know.
Why get bogged down in all of that when we can just look at the plays that happened yesterday? Because, you know, it was a 2-0 and H2K looked good, but from our perspective, there was still a couple of moments in the game where we were thinking, ooh, it still looks a little bit messy. Yeah,
like here is a quality H2K mad scientist Jankos play that people won't expect. He has GA and he has, you know, there's Kha'Zix R and everything to go invisible, so this is actually like, I'm gonna jump in here and I think I can bait a fight. So he jumps over the wall and then, you know, Misfits take this bait, and as an analyst, you guys aren't gonna really understand because you're not in the minds of the players. We don't see the beauty, but we don't hear them talk. Either you follow the comms during the games, so you can actually tell us, was this H2 greed or H2 planned? See, this is an H2 planned, I would say. H2 greed is a big problem we've had, and we're fixing it slowly. But this one was perfectly planned. I wouldn't consider this a big mistake. Maybe not a best macro play that we could repeat in other games. I'll give you that, but this was... Yes, I heard the comms, this is set up. I have, you know, GA to survive and we'll bait a fight. Can we do this? Yes. And then Jankos, mad scientist, goes on.
We're joking a little bit, but other than this particular play, it looked very convincing from H2K. You guys prepped a full week to play the Misfits. Were you surprised by kind of how easy it was for you guys to take that 2-0?
I thought they would contest a lot more in the early game. They did get some dives off in game 1, and they played that really well. But then in game 2, they picked this like really, really scaling comp, and that's just not what Misfits have been doing well in the whole season. You know, you never looked at them and said, "Oh man, look how great they scale." You look at them and you're like, their early mid is really strong, and you know teams should prepare for that. So that's what we did. And then in game 2, they just had no early game to fight us, and we could just take the game over from there, and the game seemed pretty easy,
2-0 for H2K, not the only team that will pick up a 2-0. Roccat at the bottom of the tables, picking up their second 2-0 of the week, which, you know, important for them to stay out of the relegation battle, but also the first time they've gone 2-0 on the week since the 2015 summer split. So Roccat, then they took down Vitality. It looked a lot better from Roccat than we thought it would.
Yeah, it's also a good indicator that if you're in a lower tier team, it's best to play scrappy and it's best to play team fight. Because Vitality, by all intents and purposes, should have won this series. Like, they had a major option to win that 1-3-1 split push game with the cannon. They refused to play it out correctly after getting a massive lead. And you could just tell that they weren't experienced enough with this quite complex playstyle in the 1-3-1. I think it's much better, and I hope that Giants and Origin as well learn from this today and just play scrappy team fights.
Exactly, and now we're going to have to look at how the wins yesterday actually affect the bottom, because the scuffle between the bottom 4 teams in cross-group play is reaching that finale today with Origin taking on Giants. And of course, both teams played on Thursday, a difficult day for both teams for many different reasons. Of course, Giants looking superb in the beginning of game 1 and 2, which ultimately would be remade, and Giants coming out of that day with a loss. Looking a lot better. Jankos yesterday in PGL, though, said, you know, their early game for Giants looks pretty strong. Is that something that the rest of H2K and yourself actually agree with, Prolly?
Yeah, so this is one of the times where Jankos says something, but really he's just repeating what I say. Because, yeah, I would say Memento's a really good jungler, and he's actually the big driving force behind Giants. And in the meta right now, where it's really like carry jungler focused, junglers set the pace for the early game and mid game. So it's really important that they have this kind of not just caller, but someone who is kind of just good direction in the game. He's kind of always making plays and moving around the map well.
I wonder, out of these 10 players, if anybody else was to be called a shot caller, who would we look at? Maybe on the opposing side. I mean, Peke back in the lineup. It's been a week now. Where do we see Origin going? Because there have been clear improvements.
I mean, we saw some progression. I think they at least were doing some proactive plays. Whether they were all working, no. There was a couple good teleports, but then Peke forced a bit too hard on some plays. But I actually want to change the discussion here. And now that we have a pristine, solid league analytical mind on our desk and Prolly next to me, Prolly, if you were a coach, of one of these lower tier teams, what would you work on the most? Like, what is like the first 2 weeks entail in terms of coaching?
Well, I would say for me, you would focus on what's going to happen the most, which is every game's going to be early game, like, let's be honest. So that would obviously be my first tackle point, because you would have that every single scrim. And it would pretty much be the point in the game up until maybe like first tower goes down. That's a good, segment that you can section off that and call that the early game. And that's where you just focus on like how teams are communicating. Like, are you guys actually making the like high percentage plays, like ganking lanes with CC or ganking snowball lanes? Pretty easy stuff until people are comfortable with it. And then, section off and move it on like, how do we take down the next tier 2 turrets and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm really interested in this conversation. Luckily, we got some time throughout the day and in PGL later on in the day. I'm being told, though, we're getting closer to Champion Select. So before we get there, I just want to get a few quick predictions. And who do you think is going to win and why?
Oh, it's a tough one. I still think Giants early game, and the fact that they're playing against players in the opposite of their role, kind of who are not much better, that they can actually just snowball as a team. I think Expecke will bring some shot calling, but player for player, I think Giants actually have the edge.
Yeah, I would say like maybe player for player, it's like pretty close, I would say. I am Team Nehun for real. He has such an insane losing streak that it reminds me of me a lot. So,
well, he beat it in terms of games. He beat it. He still has the match losing streak, of course.
But now it's his time to have his shortest losing streak, and I want him to do that today.
Pick 6 mid?
Yeah, something like that. Something just amazingly meta. But I will give the edge to Giants for sure. I think they'll win it over OG. I think, Memento makes a lot more proactive plays, and when you're playing 2 lower tier teams, like the proactive team, as long as they're not throwing, it's going to have a really big advantage in the match.
Well, Analyst has Kavit for Giants. I'm glad I removed myself from predictions because I always get it wrong. So the teams are almost ready for Champions Select. I'm giving over lobby invite rights to the cast today.